You keep waiting for them to say, "I'm sorry," but what if that apology never comes? The longer you wait, the more power you give away. Carl Jung understood this trap better than anyone. His work reveals why chasing validation from others keeps you emotionally stuck, and how to break free by turning inward instead. We've all been there, haunted by a hurt that never got acknowledged. Maybe it's a parent who never admitted their mistakes, an ex who refused to take responsibility, or a friend who betrayed you without remorse. That unfinished business festers. You replay the past, clinging to the hope that if they just apologized, you'd finally move on. But here's the painful truth. Waiting for their apology is just another way of handing them control over your healing. Jung warned that unmet expectations don't just vanish, they morph into what he called the shadow. The rage you suppress, the grief you ignore, the parts of yourself you disown to keep the peace, they all get buried alive. And then they sabotage you. They leak into your relationships, your self-worth, even your body. The real prison isn't their refusal to apologize. It's your own unconscious belief that you need it to be whole. The freedom you're searching for won't come from their words. It comes from reclaiming what you've been waiting for them to give you. Permission to let go, to heal, and to step into your full power. Let's explore how. Closure doesn't come from another person's words. It comes from your own willingness to release the story. But when you fixate on an apology, you hand over the keys to your inner peace, as if someone else holds the power to decide when you're allowed to move on. That's the cruel illusion. You convince yourself that justice, healing, or vindication can only arrive in the form of their remorse. Meanwhile, time passes. Opportunities fade. The past stays alive in your mind, replaying like a broken record, while the person who hurt you may have already moved on, or worse, doesn't even care. Carl Jung famously said, "Resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die." And that's exactly what happens when you wait for an apology. The bitterness doesn't punish them, it punishes you. It seeps into your relationships, your health, your ability to trust. Even if they did apologize, would it really undo the damage? Or would you still feel the wound, just with different words wrapped around it? The truth is, no apology can travel back in time and rewrite history. The real work begins when you stop waiting for them to change and start asking, why does their acknowledgement still hold so much power over me? This is where Jung's concept of the shadow comes in. The shadow is the part of your psyche where unprocessed pain goes to hide. Shame, rage, betrayal, all the emotions you've been told are too much or unacceptable. But the shadow doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. Instead, it leaks out in subtle ways. Passive-aggressive comments, self-doubt, even attracting the same kinds of hurts over and over. The more you wait for an apology, the more you feed the shadow's narrative. I am powerless until they admit what they did. And so, you remain stuck not because of what they did, but because of the story you've been telling yourself about it. The first and most difficult step is also the most liberating. They may never apologize, and that's okay. This isn't about excusing their behavior or denying your pain. It's about recognizing that your healing cannot be contingent on someone else's willingness to change. Jung called this confronting the shadow, the act of turning toward what you've been avoiding. That anger you've been swallowing? The grief you've been numbing? They aren't obstacles to your peace, they're the path. By acknowledging these emotions without judgment, you take back the power you've been handing over to the past. You stop waiting for an external solution and start creating an internal resolution. Once you've faced the reality of the situation, the next question becomes, what if this pain isn't just a wound, but a call to grow? Jung was deeply influenced by the ancient practice of alchemy, the transformation of base metals into gold. In psychological terms, this is the process of turning suffering into wisdom. Every betrayal, every injustice, every unmet expectation carries a hidden invitation to become more than the person you were before it happened. The key is to shift from asking, why did this happen to me? To what is this asking of me? The answer won't erase the past, but it will give it meaning. And meaning is the antidote to victimhood. Here's where Jung's work becomes truly transformative. He observed that the traits we most despise in others are often the ones we've disowned in ourselves. Think about it. What is it about them that triggers you so deeply? Their selfishness? Their coldness? Their dishonesty? Jung would argue that these reactions are clues, pointing you toward the parts of yourself you've been unwilling to acknowledge. This doesn't mean you're just like them, but rather that their behavior mirrors something within you that's asking to be seen. Maybe it's your own repressed anger, your fear of abandonment, or your unspoken guilt. When you reclaim these projections, you stop giving them power over you. The person who hurt you becomes less of a villain and more of a teacher, one who showed you where your work still lies. This is the heart of Jungian inner work, realizing that the apology you've been waiting for was never the real solution. The solution was always you, your courage to face what hurts, your willingness to grow from it, and your power to rewrite the story on your own terms. One of Jung's most powerful methods for processing unresolved emotions is active imagination, a bridge between your conscious mind and the deeper, often hidden, layers of your psyche. Here's how to apply it. Take out a pen and paper and write a letter to the person who hurt you. But this isn't just any letter. Don't censor yourself. Don't aim for fairness or diplomacy. Let your unconscious speak, raw, unfiltered, even messy. Rage if you need to. Grieve if you need to. Ask the questions you've been too afraid to voice. The goal isn't to send it. In fact, you won't send it. The goal is to externalize the emotions trapped inside you, giving them a form outside your body and mind. This act alone can be startlingly liberating, as if you've finally given a voice to the part of you that's been screaming in silence. Once you've poured your emotions onto the page, it's time to release them, not just mentally but physically. Jung understood that symbols and rituals have profound psychological power. They help the unconscious mind process what words alone cannot. So take that letter and destroy it in a way that feels meaningful to you. Burn it and watch the smoke carry your pain away. Bury it as a way of laying the past to rest. Tear it into pieces and scatter them in running water, symbolizing the flow of time and renewal. The key is to engage in an act that feels like closure, even if the person involved never participates. Rituals work because they signal to your psyche, this chapter is over. I am no longer holding on. The ultimate goal of Jungian psychology is individuation, the process of becoming your complete, authentic self, independent of others' validation. This is where you shift from reactive healing, waiting for them to change, to active creation, building the life you want. Start by engaging in activities that reconnect you with your true self beyond the pain. Create art that expresses your inner world. Pay attention to your dreams. They often carry messages from your unconscious about unresolved needs or new directions. Spend time in self-reflection, asking, who am I when I'm not defined by this hurt? The more you cultivate your own identity, separate from the wounds of the past, the less power their lack of apology holds over you. Individuation isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about outgrowing the version of yourself that was defined by it. These tools aren't quick fixes, they're lifelong practices. But each one chips away at the illusion that your freedom depends on someone else's words. The truth is, you already have everything you need to heal. You just needed permission to begin. Jung's most piercing insight was simple yet radical. Nothing heals unless it's first fully faced. This is the paradox at the heart of transformation. We must go through the pain, not around it. Most of us spend years, even decades, trying to outrun our wounds. We numb them, rationalize them, or bury them under layers of distraction. But Jung warned that avoidance only gives the shadow more power. The very emotions we refuse to acknowledge, the rage, the grief, the humiliation, don't disappear. They fester, metastasizing into chronic anxiety, self-sabotage, or even physical illness. True healing begins the moment we stop running and turn toward what hurts with ruthless honesty. Only then can the wound become something more, a source of strength, a well of empathy, a key to unlocking parts of ourselves we never knew existed. Modern psychology calls this phenomenon post-traumatic growth, the surprising truth that our deepest wounds often become the catalysts for our most profound evolution. Jung saw this as a kind of psychic alchemy, where the lead of suffering is transformed into the gold of wisdom. Think of the parent who, after losing a child, becomes a fierce advocate for others in grief. Or the survivor of abuse who channels their pain into art that speaks to millions. These aren't just stories of resilience, they're proof that trauma, when fully faced and integrated, can reveal hidden dimensions of our character. The key lies in asking not, "Why did this happen to me?" but "What can this reveal about who I'm meant to become?" Ancient myths understood this truth long before psychology gave it a name. Consider the phoenix, the legendary bird that burns to ashes only to rise again, renewed. This isn't just a pretty metaphor. It's an exact map of the healing process. The fire isn't the end, it's the necessary crucible. The ashes aren't defeat, they're the raw material of rebirth. Your life may feel like it's been set aflame by betrayal, abandonment, or injustice. But what if this isn't destruction? What if it's the required heat for a version of yourself you couldn't have imagined otherwise? The phoenix doesn't rise despite the fire, it rises because of it. Your pain, fully faced and alchemized, could be the very thing that propels you into your next chapter. This is the ultimate gift Jung offers. The realization that our greatest trials aren't obstacles to our destiny, they're the unlikely path to it. The apology you've been waiting for would have given you closure. But the meaning you forge from the pain? That gives you something far more rare. A life that's not just recovered, but reclaimed on your own terms. For years, you may have believed your healing was held hostage by someone else's remorse. But here's the truth we've uncovered together. The power was never in their apology, it's always been in your ability to rewrite the story. Carl Jung's wisdom reveals that the prison of resentment only exists as long as you agree to stay inside it. Every moment you spend waiting for external validation is a moment you delay your own liberation. But the moment you turn inward, facing your shadow, reclaiming your projections, and alchemizing your pain, you reclaim authorship of your life. The past doesn't change, but you do. And that changes everything. This week, I challenge you to take one step off the sidelines of your own healing. Identify one lingering resentment, whether it's toward a person, an institution, or even yourself, and apply one Jungian tool we've discussed. Write the unsent letter. Perform a releasing ritual. Journal about what this pain might be trying to teach you. The size of the action doesn't matter, the intention does. This is how shadows lose their power, not in one grand gesture, but in the daily choice to meet yourself where you are. As we close, let this truth sink in. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Inspired by Jung's vision of individuation. Your wounds are part of your story, but they don't get to dictate its ending. That privilege belongs to you alone. If this resonated with you, you're not alone. Hit like to help others find this message, and subscribe for more explorations of psychology that bridges insight with action. I'd love to hear in the comments, which Jungian concept clicked for you today? For those ready to go deeper, check out the Inner Work newsletter, your weekly guide to turning theory into lived transformation. The path to wholeness isn't easy, but it's yours. And it starts now.